Hi, I'm Liz Dyer, the founder of the Mama Bears organization. Our organization is dedicated to supporting, educating, and empowering moms of LGBTQ kids and the LGBTQ community. I'm here today talking with Trey Pearson. I'm excited about us getting together and having a conversation and talking about his new music. Trey is an American singer-songwriter. He founded the American Christian rock band Everyday Sunday in 1997. He toured with that band for more than 13 years. And then in 2016, he came out as a gay Christian music artist and man. And as you can imagine, that rocked his world. That changed everything a lot. Today, we're going to talk with Trey about his journey and about the music he's putting out and just what's going on in his life today. Hey, Trey, great to be with you
Hi,
today.
thanks for having me. Yeah,
You're welcome. Um, you're in Columbus today?
I am. I'm home. My kids are inside playing Minecraft or Roblox or something like that, and I'm hanging out at home, so it's nice.
It's nice. The day looks pretty there, all sunny, and I can see your pride flag flapping in the
Yes,
wind.
yeah. Just got to. We were supposed to have our Columbus Pride this last weekend, but with the pandemic, they had postponed it. But even though we didn't have Pride weekend, we did end up doing a Pride March for Black Lives Matter, and that was my first time. My kids got to do a Pride March with me, and I thought it was pretty neat to have them be at such a meaningful thing. So we're still finding ways to celebrate Pride here, even in the midst of everything going on.
Well, that's great. You heard me mention that a little bit of your story, but and I know we've shared it with some of the mama bears before, but I know there
Yeah.
will always be people listening that haven't heard it yet. So I kind of wanted to get back to you just telling a little bit about your story. I mentioned that you had started a rock band Everyday Sunday in 1997. It was a
Yeah,
Christian rock band.
16. Yeah, I grew up in a super conservative, evangelical sort of home, and my youth group, mega church youth group I went to, got me into Christian music as a teenager, and as somebody who really grew up passionate about my faith, and somebody who loved doing music, and I taught myself how to play piano growing up. I did theater, professional theater downtown Columbus. I thought, oh, well, this is a way I can combine what I love in the arts with my faith, and so yeah, I signed a record deal in 2001 or yeah, end of 2001. I was 21, and in 2002 put out my debut album on a major Christian record label called Stand Up, and my band Everyday Sunday, we considered ourselves a Christian rock band. I think after several years touring in that industry, even though I still was in that faith-based industry, I probably stopped believing in the idea of like quote unquote Christian music or Christian musicians. Like I found that like um Christian makes a lot better like noun as to describe somebody's faith than it does like an adjective to be like, oh, this restaurant's Christian or this movie Christian, or this band's Christian. Like um I think a lot of times people end up using it as a gimmick to sell Jesus for money or something like that. But yeah, that's the world I grew up in. That's the subculture I kind of lived in, and I had a decent amount of success in that world. I had 5 number one U.S. Billboard singles, 20 top 10 singles in the U.S., and got to tour all over the world. Been in all 50 states and 20 countries. Definitely kind of put all my faith into believing what I had been taught growing up, and really wore my faith on my sleeve as far as just like wanting to believe I was doing God's will for me in my personal life and in my public life. And, definitely grew up in a very, like so many, like, I think I read 85% of LGBTQ people in the US grew up in either like in a Christian, conservative Christian or Catholic home, and And so obviously you can guess most people in our community come with a bit of trauma, growing up believing that they can be something that they're not. And I definitely had that belief for myself. And I I was a Bible nerd as a kid. I read the Bible front to back as a teenager 6 times all the way through. I memorized the book of James. I was in this thing called Bible Bowl. We had buzzers. It was really nerdy. And but that was the world I grew up in. And I put all my faith into trying to do what I thought God wanted me to do. And I believe that as a hopeless romantic kid that wanted to know what it was like desperately to fall in love. I thought that I had to be with a woman, and I never was able to relate any of my connections with my guy friends or my relationships with those guys, as I never thought of that as an option. Like I never was even able to recognize my own deep down subconscious crushes or feelings that I had, because I was so shut off to even allow opening myself to experience that. I thought that that was a temptation from the devil, and I thought God would think I was an abomination, and I would burn in hell. And that stuff's scary when you grow up being brainwashed as a kid to believe that that's how God views you. That's it's pretty rough. And that's what I did. So as I started touring around in my band, I ended up dating this girl, and I loved hanging out with her. And I mean, with any mama bears that have gay kids, like it's not uncommon for a boy to get along really great with girls. Does not mean you are romantically in love with them, but I wanted to be, and I thought that I could make it work. I was like, I could see myself having a family with this girl. And I thought, well, it was easy in that world also to kind of stay pure, is what they called it. Like, safe sex for marriage. My ex-wife, I got married, and she had a true love weights ring growing up that her dad had given her and so, like, we had never done more than a kiss goodnight, like a peck on the lips, before we got married. And kind of went into that believing, hoping, praying, fingers crossed that everything would just magically work. And it of course didn't. And it was a really traumatic, torturous thing, I think, for both of us. And we really were trying to do what we had been taught growing up, and took a long time to finally face reality with myself, and to gain some self-awareness to the point where I was able to finally admit to myself that I was gay. And it was not easy, but 7.5 years in a marriage and 2 kids later, I finally came to that point where the first time in my life I admitted to myself that I was gay, and then to my wife and my family. And so when our kids were pretty little, my daughter Liv, she was 6, and my son Beckham, he was 2. I came out, and then probably less than 7 months later, I came out publicly to the world, and I really wanted to share my story on my own terms. A lot of people were taking the initiative to share it for me. And as somebody who grew up listening to like Christian rock music, I could tell you Christian rock stars that some of the biggest to this day that are still closeted. And I think, man, if one of these guys I looked up to when I was a kid would have had the courage to come out, I think about how that could have affected my life. And so, coming out and finally accepting myself, I really did feel a passion to want to share my story for myself, for my kids, and for every kid that ever felt like I did, hoping that maybe I could make a difference and make an impact. And so I came out publicly, June 2016. It might have been May 31st. I think the story was supposed to come out June 1st, and it leaked a day early, and it ended up kind of going viral and trending worldwide, and ended up talking to the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN, even Fox News, everywhere. I was on The View. It was a very surreal time, like having NBC call your phone, and just, I don't even know how they got my number, but they did, and it was very surreal, but I was very thankful that I was able to share my journey in a way that I have gotten a lot of, countless messages, and still continue. I saw another one this morning from somebody who read my story and wanted to share their journey back with me. And that's really given me a big passion. I feel like when there's this major part of yourself, I'm sorry, I'm talking so much. I hope this
No,
is
I love
okay.
it. No, it's
Okay, cool.
perfect.
When, I think, when there's this major part of yourself that you are trying to press down your entire life, and all of a sudden you let that valve burst open, it really, after, being 35 years old, having two kids, being a Christian rock band, I found that burst of something that was well deep within me, came out in so many avenues, and joy and peace and freedom, and also just in my creativity. And so I feel like, I've been so inspired to continue writing songs about my journey. I think that's been my favorite way to communicate with people my whole life, is through my songs. And so I have not had a shortage of things I've wanted to write about or felt inspired to write about. And so, yeah, I hung up my old Christian rock band Everyday Sunday, and I put out my first solo album called Love is Love. And then I've even put out a few new songs since then, and I'm continuing to work on all kinds of things. But yeah, I just put out a new song this last couple weeks, and so that's been really exciting too. But that's sort of the faster version of kind of what my life has looked like a little bit.
Well, I think so many people can relate to your story. And I think so many families like mine can relate to your story.
Mm,
I know my own son, we grew up, we brought him up in a conservative Christian environment. And of course, at the time, we thought we were doing the right thing. Honestly, we
yeah.
never really even talked about the subject. I mean, my son came out more than 12 years ago, and you didn't really talk about it. It just was known
Mm,
what the belief was.
yeah.
And so my son never came out, when he was young. He came out when he was in his second year of college away from home.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, but you look back on that, and as a mom, I have so many regrets. It's like, I wish I had known what I know today. I wish I would have been there when my son was, kind of dealing with this privately as a young person.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Well, I think what so many parents are still needing to learn is, like, even if you don't talk about it, even if you're not explicitly against it verbally, when you grow up, even if it's like just this taboo thing that's never talked about, there's so many cultural things that make you feel like there's something wrong with it, whether it's something you heard at church, or one of your church friends said, or your youth pastor said, or even kids at school, or like there's just so many messages. And it's like, what I've learned with my kids, that I just thought about, what would I have wanted when I was a kid. And I would have, more than anything, I cannot imagine getting to grow up in a home where people aren't always asking you if you have a girlfriend yet, um, if people, or if you have crushes on any girls. But if people are like, oh, you know what, it's okay to like boys or girls or both or neither. And some people like one, some like the other, some like it all. And like, just like to get to grow up with that kind of messaging, man, would have changed my entire life. And so if I can do that for my kids, and that's a big thing I always want to stress to parents, is don't be quiet about it. Because it's like, I even know I get so many stories talking to young, like, college kids, where they think like, well, they didn't have it as bad as somebody else because their parents weren't like maybe as conservative as somebody else's, or like they never thought they would burn in hell, but they still were scared to tell their parents. Even in high school, they didn't get to go to prom or homecoming with someone of the same sex. And it's like, it's weird when you don't realize the depth of your trauma, when you're comparing yourselves to people that have had worse trauma than you, instead of comparing yourself to how it should be, which is getting to grow up going, oh yeah, if you want to go to the 6th grade or 8th grade dance with someone of the same sex, that's like encouraged and okay. And you know, I think starting at a very young age where you can teach your kids that it's okay to like either one or neither or both is such a huge, powerful, life-changing thing for LGBTQ kids, especially, and
Exactly.
even for straight kids, so they grow up being awesome allies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, that was my point. Even though we didn't really talk about it, it was still known that
Mm,
the church we went to and the community we were kind of embedded in were it was non-affirming. And so that message, I mean, it got out into my son's heart and mind anyway. And
mm,
so that caused him to hide who he was.
yeah.
Because I think another thing about young people is maybe even young people that aren't in real conservative homes, they have some kind of fear often of being different. And
Right.
I think as parents, you know, we need to talk about these things in a way that we're all different. You know,
Yeah.
we really are all different because we're all unique, and that's good. And yet
Yeah.
we're all the
Absolutely.
same in some ways too. And we can talk
Mm,
about these things in healthy ways and have good
yeah.
conversations with our kids to help them, you know, kind
Seeing
of
our universal connection, even though we are different,
right. And the
and
differences are
and
good, but the same things are
yes,
good. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
and that can bring us together. Absolutely.
Exactly. And also it can give our kids the, I don't know, the be empowered to really live into the person that they were created to be. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's a really important message among families who really embrace the Christian faith, because I believe that as Christians we bring you know, the most joy and glory to God by living authentically as the people that we were created to be.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it funny that the from the faith tradition we come from, that the greatest message that Jesus gives us is to love our neighbor as ourselves, and to know that that is the only, whatever God is, the only way we can know what it is to love God is to love our neighbor. And
Exactly.
man, just how many things get in our way that just like take us from that. It's so ridiculous.
It's so crazy. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We, you know, we do better when we know better. And
Yeah.
so, you know better, I know better. And what's
Hmm.
exciting is sometimes that leads us to discover some things that we're really passionate about. And one thing you and I have in common, Trey, is we're both very passionate about supporting and loving and affirming and celebrating LGBTQ people. And I love
Absolutely.
the work that you've been doing since you came out.
Hmm.
I don't know if everybody knows, but you have a wonderful private Facebook group that is
Yeah.
for LGBTQ people and also allies. And it's a great place where people can go and share, you know, their stories or their questions, just whatever's on their mind in a place where they'll be you know, affirmed and supported. And I don't know, I think you've got 3 or 4 thousand people in that group now, don't you?
Yeah, it's, I think it's close to 4,000. I don't know, or maybe it's just over three. I don't even know what it is, but yeah, a few
It's a
thousand.
lot.
And it's yeah, it's called Treys LGBTQ Safe Space, and it's a closed group, so you can find it if you search for it on Facebook, but you can't see who's in it. It you know, kind of keeps the privacy of the members, especially for those who still are closeted and kind of just in that part of their journey. And so we really respect the safety of the people in the group, but it's just this beautiful space for people to share their journeys as it relates to being LGBTQ. And I think, you know, from when I came out, because maybe my story was so public, that I got thousands and thousands of messages, even starting that first day. And I was constantly trying to email everyone back because I do care. I want to, but to hear these stories, and it is very inspiring and moving and sometimes devastating. But like, I also realize that I only have so much emotional energy that I can give, and sometimes I get spent in, I wanted to create a space where people could. I know people were reaching out to me because it was wonderful to realize that they're not alone. For them to let me know that I'm not alone, and I thought, man, this space where people, and I mean, very similar to the Serendipity Doodah group, right? Like where where people can see that they're not the only ones going through this, and that they can be united and together, and to find that solidarity is a beautiful thing. And so that's really been the goal of the group, and for people to see each other and to be seen, to share their journeys. It's been pretty fantastic.
Yeah, and well, I know that space and that community means a lot to many people, and I just thank you for doing that. I
Thank
know
you.
that that is what I hear a lot too from mama bears, is that it's
Yeah.
so good to know that I'm not alone. And
Yeah,
it's so much
absolutely.
easier to go on this journey with other people who can relate to
Hmm.
what we're experiencing. So thank you for doing that. And then um, of course, when you came out, and you were known, you know, predominantly as a gay Christian music artist,
Yeah.
um, that really threw things up in the air for you because, as we know, that little machine, the Christian industry, really draws a line in the sand when it comes to
Yeah.
things, and they just do not want to associate with anybody who is gay, and saying it's okay for me to be gay, and embracing affirming theology. So
Right. Even though so many of my songs are about my faith journey, all my old like band songs were dropped off of the Christian radio stations. We were no longer welcome in those spaces. We were no longer welcome at the Christian music festivals. We were no longer welcome uh, in any of those spaces, at the conferences, at the concerts, on the tours, and I knew that would happen. It's sad, but I also realize that the world is so much bigger than that kind of subculture, that bubble, and um, I it's been a crazy journey to have to start over, and to this is what I've done my whole adult life, and that's definitely been a challenge, but I've continued to work at it, and I'm really grateful to get to continue to share my music, even if it's not in those spaces anymore. And kind of had to start again from scratch, but that's all right.
well, I think you've done a great job, and you have a really good attitude, because I know that is very hurtful, and it's very difficult, and it's scary too. I mean, you kind
Yeah.
of build something up, and it's hard to let it go, and to think that you've got to start over. But I know you've done a tremendous job, and I know the Mama Bears really think so much of you, and we appreciate the
Mm.
time that you've given to us and our families and our communities. I know sometimes you've been a guest at some Mama Bear gatherings, and we just always appreciate that. We're going to talk about later that there's going to be an opportunity for Mama Bears to have you come to their towns and do some outdoor
Yeah.
concerts.
Yeah,
But
I do with my. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
before we get to that, I want to talk about your new song.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, let's
I
talk
have a new
about that.
song just came out. It's called 1984. Actually, I was letting you know before, but Huffington Post just ran an article about it yesterday, so I'm very excited about that. And got featured in the Advocate magazine, which is an LGBTQ magazine, and it's been exciting. I kind of wanted to write the song as sort of this love letter from the LGBTQ community that went through the AIDS pandemic to everybody going through this COVID-19 pandemic that we are right now. But with that, I really wanted it to be uplifting and to be something that can encourage people and find hope in. And then we've been even going through so much more now. Well, with of course some of the police brutality that's happened, and people on the margins just feeling like their voices need to be heard. We want to be heard, and I know that I desire that as a gay man. I understand that there's so much work to be done, and so yeah, this song is kind of this sort of rise up anthem, love letter, and I as I was writing it and finishing it, this very well-known AIDS activist from the 1980s, Larry Kramer, passed away, and it felt very fitting to dedicate this to him. He was very well known for his ACT UP kind of protests that got the attention of the government to start paying attention to the AIDS pandemic in the early 80s. He wrote a Broadway show that became a movie with Julia Roberts and Mark Ruffalo called The Noble Heart, which takes place in 1984. And so yeah, this is sort of it's a love letter from the LGBT community, but I feel like is a very moving video on YouTube dedicated to him as well. But I'm really excited about it.
I am too. I really love it. I love the song, and I love the sentiment and the message behind it. It's
Thank
really
you.
and it's a great time for it too. Yeah, I really love the music that you're putting out these days, and part of being an independent artist means that your touring is different than it was in the past.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
love what you're doing. In the past, you've been doing these home concerts.
Yeah.
Um,
I do a lot of pride festivals and things like that, but around that I do a lot of what I call my safe space tour. They sort of coincides with my safe space group, and I just saw my little man. He's about to ride his bike. Sorry. Yeah, but so with my safe space tour, we do house shows. I typically would do breweries and public spaces as well. But with everything going on with the pandemic, I haven't been able to do any shows at all the last few months, and it's been pretty tough time to get through. But I've had a little bit of support from my Patreon people, but with that, I am starting to get back to doing my safe space shows outside, and mostly I'm setting them up in people's backyards that are willing to have me, where people can still safely social distance as they need to, and even if it's gatherings of like 20 to 40 people in yards, sharing my journey and my songs. And it's always a really special, moving, meaningful time. And I really love getting the chance to do it and getting the chance to meet people all over the country and all over the world now, and just get to share my story and songs with them. And I would love to. I've gotten to do it with many mama bears, and I really would love to get to as many mama bear homes as possible. That would be fantastic.
yeah, and we're gonna share some information about. I think you said they could contact you through your email or Facebook
Yeah.
Messenger, right?
Yeah, you can go to treypearsonbooking@gmail.com, or you can just message me on Facebook. Either way, I'll probably see it a little quicker on the email, but yeah, I would love to work it out to get to as many places as possible, and trying to pick things up, to get back, continue to keep providing for my kids and keep doing the work that I'm passionate about.
Well, I know there'll be some mama bears that want to get you in their backyards or somewheres in their community where you can do an outdoor concert, and
Yeah,
so we'll make sure that we get that word out.
sounds
So
great.
when we were chatting just briefly before we started our recording today, you told me some other exciting news. Is that okay for me to bring up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you got a new guy in your life.
Yeah, for first time in my life, I have my first boyfriend, and he's wonderful. It, I think like it's been a few years now, and I've definitely dated a lot, and have also, as being a father, found myself pretty picky on jumping into a committed relationship. But you know, my kids love them, and it's been really good. So it's been one of those things that I think for a while I started. The first year after I came out, I my therapist kind of encouraged me not to jump into a relationship, to take time to get to know myself, and I'm really glad I did that. But I think after that, I was just like so ready to like fall head over heels for someone, and I definitely had some crushes, definitely had some great people that I got to date, but never really found that person to kind of really be in this committed relationship that I wanted to bring around my kids and spend lots of time with. And I do think for a while there, being in the gay community, it is a lot smaller of a pond, I'll say, and having kids and being a father, it does make things a little different. And I think sometimes I wondered, well, did I just miss it? Did I just come out too late? And I knew coming out was at the very least, it was for me to be happy with myself and to accept myself and to find that freedom and that peace, and to get to sort of find something like this just is so special and exciting for sure. So yeah, very very excited to just be where I am in life. I feel pretty lucky.
Well, I'm happy for you. I can tell you're
Thank
happy
you.
when you talk about it.
Thank you.
your
I
your
am.
face lights up just a little bit.
Well, yeah.
Well, Trey, I love having this chat with you and getting this information
Mm.
out to the mama bears and the friends and family members of the mama bears. Is there anything else you wanted to share with us today while we're together?
No, just that I'd love to have any of you mama bears in my safe space group, and I would love to meet you in person as I travel around this country and to other countries. And I hope that you'll check out my music. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music, and it's on my YouTube channel. So just feel very I love the LGBTQ community, and I very much know that also involves every one of the moms out there, and it's just absolutely wonderful. And I value it. I cherish it. I think it's wonderful, and I love getting to have that unity with you all and to have you all a part of our community. It's pretty great.
Well, it's been great talking with you today, and I
Thanks,
just really
Liz.
appreciate your time. And just stay in touch with us, and
All right.
I'll include all the links and things when we post our conversations, so that everybody can get in touch with you.
Okay. Well, I look forward to talking to you all soon.
Okay, take care.
All right. See you, Liz.
Bye bye.